Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first installment of my video journal titled My OI Journey, OI standing for Osseointegration. My name is Jerry Vasilatos. I am an amputee. I lost my limb 1986, which would put this over 35 years ago when I was 20 years old. And I am a media professional and filmmaker who throughout the years has managed to struggle with the challenges of dealing with a disability, especially an above the knee amputation, loss of limb. Try not to let it slow me down with my career, professional and personal aspirations. But as many amputees know, when you're fitted with an artificial limb, there are a whole set of challenges that come related to the length of your limb, your strength, your energy levels. By the way, this is Oreo. Oreo likes to co-produce my programs. He's probably going to jump up a lot when I broadcast and bring you these video journals. Say hello to everybody. Don't look at me, look at them. Come on, look over here. All right, he's going to be obstinate. Anyway, as many amputees probably know, technologies available to us to support our mobility are limited or have been limited in the past to what's called prosthetic and socket technology. Prosthetic and socket technology is essentially your prosthetist takes a casting of your residual limb, which is commonly known as a stump because that's what's left after you lose a limb in an amputation. They take a casting of your limb, and what they do is they create a socket that kind of looks like a bucket, but it's custom fitted to your residual limb. And then that socket is then connected to the hardware underneath you that leads to your knee, your lower limb as it connects with your foot. This kind of technology has been around for ages. My understanding is this type of technology, this type of facilitation for prosthetics has existed since like the ancient Egyptians. This is how people who lost their limbs were fitted with prosthetics. So while it's certainly functional and has worked throughout the years, what the average person doesn't understand and that amputees know all too well is that it's a very, very uncomfortable type of technology, if you want to call it a technology, that you just have to deal with. Many of the issues that you deal with wearing a socket, a conventional socket, is pressure sores, perspiration, sweat. When you wear your limb throughout the day, it can become loose, even if your socket is held on with suction. And I'm going to show a little bit about how conventional socket technology is implemented so that you can understand what the innovations and the promise of this newly created innovation called osseointegration for transfemoral amputees offers. And you're also dealing with your energy levels throughout the day. It can be very difficult when you put on your limb in the beginning of the day to be able to get through 6, 7, 8 hours without wanting to rush home and take it off because it grinds into your pelvis. You get tired. It's heavy. It really does make everyday activity very difficult. And although we deal with it because we're grateful we can be walking again, there haven't been any major innovations in the fitting of a prosthetic with socket technology throughout the years. There have been innovations with the hardware underneath the socket. For example, conventional prosthetic knees used to be, they used to have a brake drum in them with carbon strips that if you put your weight down on your limb, so that it doesn't buckle from underneath you. You'd have the brake drums inside the knee literally act like the brake drums of a car, where the carbon, it was kind of gritty, it would hold the knee in position so that it didn't buckle underneath you. But even that wasn't always reliable. That kind of technology has now evolved to what we call microprocessor C-leg technology, where the hardware in your prosthetic knees are actually programmed with a computer chip. Your prosthetist will get you fitted. There's a microprocessor in the knee. They connect it to a computer. They program your gait so that your knee literally will lock underneath you if you're walking, and it will not fall, or it will not buckle underneath you. So you have some stability with your walking without fear of falling, because the computer chip that's programmed actually physically locks the limb at a certain point when you're walking, based on your weight and what your gait is like. So those have been the innovations with artificial limbs throughout the years as far as the hardware, but never really anything yet related to the fitting of the prosthetic limb, which is, again, that socket bucket type of technology. And I've explained some of the difficulties related to wearing that type of a prosthetic limb. People who've lost their limb below the knee have a little bit of a better opportunity with their mobility, because they still have control of their knee. As you know, your brains and your nervous system will control the flexion of your knee. But if you don't have your knee and you're above the limb, you don't have a knee to control, which is why you're really reliant on that microprocessor C-leg technology, as well as a good fitted socket that throughout the day doesn't retain its stability. Because when you've got soft tissue in there and you're constantly moving around and stuff, it comes loose, the risk of it falling off, popping off, pushing yourself back into it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what is osseointegration, and why am I starting this channel to share my journey in this process as it's now becoming available to amputees? Osseointegration is a process by which surgeons will implant a titanium rod into your residual bone, your residual femur. And that titanium rod will then emerge from your skin. So you literally have what's left of your residual bone, your femur, coming out from your skin. It's anchored to you. You're not putting on a socket that gets wobbly underneath you. You've got the stem coming out of you that then connects to the knee hardware underneath, and gives you much more stability, confidence in your walking, and opens up a whole range of opportunities that most amputees lose from the moment they lose their limb and they're dealing with the regular socket technology. I've got a video here for presentation to kind of give people a sense of like what osseointegration is and why I'm excited to share this. Although osseointegration is not new, most people don't know what it is. As I've shared with friends, family this past year that I've been researching this process, a lot of people aren't aware of this new innovation as it helps amputees. And certainly we're aware of the technologies related to joint implants. That's nothing new. Joint implants are amazing, and being able to give people kind of a second life if they've worn out their knee. I've had a knee implant, a total knee replacement. People have hip replacements. People have shoulder replacements, shoulder joint replacements. But with this particular technology, with the hardware actually coming out of your body and connecting to something outside, it almost kind of makes you look like a robot. That aside, there is an existing form of osseointegrated implantation that has been available in the US. It's called the screw fit OPRA system. There's another fit called the OPL implant, which is an implant that goes into the bone, and both of those have been approved. The procedure I'm undergoing next Friday is for what's called a compress fit osseointegrated implant. These are not available in the United States, although they've been available for over a decade in Australia and Europe. The United States, as is often the case, is a little bit late to embrace this technology. So the implantation that I'm going to be receiving is through a clinical research study that's being done through Northwestern University. I'm one of 10 patients. I'm actually the first patient to undergo the compress fit implantation. the purpose of this clinical trial is so that the FDA will approve this version of the implantation so that it becomes widely available throughout the United States for other amputees to enhance their quality of life. As I understand it from my doctor, the compress fit is most ideal for amputees who have very short residual limbs like myself. When I lost my leg many, many years ago, the surgeons had to cut high because I had sustained an injury that was so severe. They had no choice through the life-saving procedure but to amputate my limb high above the knee. They left me enough femur to be able to deal with a socket, but I can't walk without a cane right now. I've always had kind of a wobbly gait. It's been kind of a challenge. I don't wear my leg that often because it's uncomfortable. Most of my friends and family in certain settings will always see me on my crutches or in my apartment in my transport chair rolling around because it's easier. I will wear my prosthetic limb when I go out because I want to have my hands free. I want to, present properly in social situations. But, even when I'm out, as I think a lot of amputees would tell you, it becomes a little bit difficult and uncomfortable. This new technology that I'm looking forward to, this new procedure, I don't sense once I attach the limb to my the titanium rod coming out of my leg, I'm going to be in any rush to get it off because it's literally going to be like I kind of have my leg back. Why don't I share with you first a look at what osseointegration is, the different procedures, and then I'll share a little bit of my story so that you can kind of come up to speed as to who I am, what my experience has been like for the past 35 plus years, and why I'm really excited about this what are we going to call it? It almost feels like my life is going to, I don't know, what do we call it? Not a reimagining, but it's a relaunch. I only wish this procedure had been available, over 30 years ago, because I do think my life would be different if I'd had the better mobility, and I'm grateful it's happening now. But tonight is my 59th birthday. I will be 60 next March. So I plan to video journal my progress with my implantation from now through next year, even though the clinical study will go longer, so that we can see how my life has improved, how it can improve the lives of other amputees, hoping that the clinical trial will get the FDA off its butt to offer this particular procedure for those that have shorter limbs, and just, I don't know, share and inspire and share the innovation, because I'm really excited to be the first in this study doing this. And my surgery is this coming Friday. So next Saturday at this time, I will be in a hospital room recovering, and I'm not going to be able to wear a prosthetic limb for 3 months, because what they want to happen is the bone to go around the implant strengthen, give it 3 months healing time, at which point I will then be working with physical therapists with a new prosthetic limb that's attached to the implant to safely bear weight on the implant as it's now anchored into my bone. So before we continue, let me share with you what these procedures are like. Now, this particular video, I believe it's from Johns Hopkins University, and it kind of goes through the different types of implants that are available, including the compress fit, which is not yet available in the United States. So let's share that, and then we can talk on the other end of it.
Socket prostheses have improved quality of life for many amputees. However, for people who experience discomfort, skin issues, or frequent prosthesis refittings, osseointegration, or OI, has become an appealing option. OI involves surgically inserting a metal implant into the bone, removing the need for a socket. Am I a good candidate? You may be a good candidate for OI if you are an above the knee transfemoral, below the knee transtibial, or above the elbow transhumeral amputee. OI may not be appropriate for patients with a diagnosis of diabetes, neuropathy, osteoporosis, or peripheral vascular disease. OI is not recommended for smokers or individuals with a high body weight. Implant types. There are currently 2 OI implant types available in the US, OPRA and OPL. A third implant, Compress, is only available on clinical trial.
There we go.
These systems differ in their designs, number of required surgical stages, and levels at which they sit in the bone. Certain implants, like OPRA, are FDA approved for transfemoral amputees primarily, but it may be available in select cases for transtibial or transhumeral use. As FDA approval varies for each implant, it is important to discuss your options during your first evaluation. Evaluation. A team of clinicians, including surgeons, physiatrists, prosthetists, and other rehabilitation therapists, look at various factors vital to your recovery. X-rays, lab results, and medical history are checked for bone quality or vitamin D and calcium levels. Based on lab or X-ray findings, supplements can be recommended. It's important to know that OI can be an emotional process that may require mental health specialist support. Medical clearance may be needed from your primary care physician. Final surgical clearance will come from the OI clinician team. Surgery. If the chosen implant requires 2 surgeries, there will be a 3-month healing period between surgeries to let the bone heal around the implant. You should not put any weight on the limb while healing, but may work on core training with the physical therapist. Rehabilitation. About 6 weeks after your final surgery, your rehabilitative journey begins. You will start with hip and core strengthening exercises before moving to a short training prosthesis. You will slowly increase the weight put on the leg until you can support your own body weight on the short prosthesis. After physician approval, you will be fitted for a full prosthesis and continue walking training, initially with the help of crutches or raised bars. Each completed rehabilitation milestone strengthens the patient and helps the OI implant form a stronger connection with the bone. Over time, you can tolerate physical activity unsupported. The time it takes to walk unsupported on a full prosthesis varies from person to person, sometimes taking over a year. Long-term care. Long-term care of an OI implant needs regular monitoring. You must regularly clean and check the skin around your implant for signs of skin infection. Other complications may include bone infections, fractures, or implant loosening. OI is a promising choice for amputees who want an alternative to socket prostheses. However, it's important to understand that OI is more than just a surgery. It is a long, rehabilitative journey that requires proper communication, patience, and a holistic approach.
So there you go with an overview on what this process is like. And as I mentioned before I shared that video, I'm participating in the clinical trial for the Compress Fit, which is going to lead towards the FDA approval. So many people might ask, well, Jerry, you've got the socket, you've got the prosthesis, you've had it for over 35 years. Why change? Yeah, maybe your mobility will change, maybe it won't. Certainly the doctors, as well as the video, mentioned that there is risk for infection. And I'm very conscious of that. I'm a hygienic person. I'm going to keep the area clean and as hygienically taken care of as possible, so that if there is any risk for infection, of course, you've also got antibiotics to help that. I'm very lucky throughout my life, through my good genes, I think I've got pretty good health, aside from physical problems I've had, and physical problems that I've had are usually born from the fact I lost my leg when I was 20, and I've overdone things, which is what forced having a total knee replacement surgery 10 years early, because as my doctor said, you do too much. And I literally wore down the cartilage in my knee where I was bone on bone. So I had to have the knee replacement surgery. I fell down, tore 3 rotator cuffs, muscles in my left shoulder from a freak accident. And even after that surgery, because I was overexerting myself with my right side, I had to have rotator cuff surgery on the right side. So, the more you do physically, I've been through the ringer with surgeries, which is why when a lot of people are like, aren't you worried about the surgery? It's like, I'm so used to going under the knife for physical issues. Maybe I haven't even thought about the fact that, well, yeah, you might be in good health. Anything can happen under anesthesia, but I've lost weight. I'm in good health. I'm physically as active as I can be. So I'm fairly comfortable with the associated risks, but this is why. Um, this is why when I first heard about osseointegration surgery, I got very excited. One other reason being too, the existing sea leg that I have, it's about, I would say 4 or 5 years old, and normally your hardware, they will refurbish it, but once it goes out of warranty, you have to get a new hardware underneath the socket. And as I started realizing I'm going to have to, submit to my Medicare and take care of my, insurance and stuff to get the new prosthetic limb, I discovered osseointegration. I thought, well, geez, if this is kind of the emerging technology, why not study more about this, find out about it, and see if I can implement it with my new prosthetic limb below my residual limb and get rid of the socket. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what amputees deal with when they put their limbs on. And I want to give a shout out to my friend John O'Shaughnessy, a good friend of mine, videographer, cinematographer, teaching now at DePaul. I asked John to shoot some footage of me for this program, as well as perhaps a documentary I'm going to spin this whole story off into, and also see if I can get other patients who've had osseointegration surgery and hear their stories for something later. But this is why this technology is so appealing to me. So take a look. This is what we need to deal with if we want to start our day. My friend John didn't realize until he shot this with me. Oh my, yeah, now I understand why you never want to wear your leg every day. What I'm doing there is disconnecting the charger that overnight charges the microprocessor in the knee for the stability option I told you about earlier. So the first thing you do is you disconnect the charger because it charges overnight, so you've got a strong battery throughout the day. That's the conventional socket. You have a valve. Since this is a suction socket, what I'm doing is I'm using what we call a pull sock to pull my residual limb into the socket to get total contact before that valve gets replaced, so that you've got a suction bond or suction connection, even though the suction can give way during the day, as I explain. If you perspire, you run the risk of your leg popping off, as often does happen if you're wearing it for long periods of time. You got to make sure you're aligned properly. Everything is comfortable on the outside as well as the inside, because if you don't lower yourself into it properly, you get a little bit pinched in the groin area. Okay, now it's in. Pretty good contact all around. Adjusting, the privates, then you replace the valve. Now you've got a total suction connection by which this should stay on at least for the first 3 or 4 hours of the day, unless you sit in a chair or you climb into a car, at which point the suction can come loose. And it's certainly, you can push yourself back into it, but if you're not aligned properly, then you've got discomfort issues that can affect the rest of your day. as I'm seated on the bed there, I'm very, very conscious of the thing not popping off because of the angle that I'm seated at and with the socket finally connected. And I'm going somewhere with this, so be patient until you see, you know, you're fully equipped to go on and take on your day, even though, you know, I do, as I mentioned earlier, have to use a cane because my limb is so short. Controlling that socket, it can still get a little bit wobbly, and you don't have, you know, what they call the lever underneath you to be stable when you're walking. There's my other cat, Sylvester, keeping me company in the background. All right, we're almost there. Amputees watching this show, you know what I'm talking about, right? All right. And there you have it. That's what we go through to like get on our leg, to go out, have our hands free, and deal with the day. All right. Here is a patient named, I believe, Jim, putting on his osseointegrated limb after his procedure's been completed. This is post-op. This is, oh gosh, I don't have, I believe the patient's name is Jim, but this is what osseointegration looks like.
It's nice to be able to just display. That was slick. Okay, and then back on. Simple.
Look at that.
Great. Awesome.
Boom. So there you go. Plus, with that implantation coming out and connecting to the hardware underneath you, this is the level of confidence and comfort and stability you're going to have. Now, this patient's name is Joe. This video I found on YouTube. This is Joe walking 4 months after his post osseointegration implant.
Good to go.
That's pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk without my cane. And if I still have to retain my cane, I don't have a problem with that. But so long as I've got something that I don't have to worry about sliding off me, slipping off me. I like to ride a bicycle, and riding a bicycle, the balancing act of riding a bicycle with a conventional prosthetic socket it's nerve-wracking because you're always worried as you're pedaling up and down. If that thing comes loose and your leg pops off, you fall down, then you risk injury. And it has actually happened to me, the rest of your body. You have this thing on, that's not going to happen. I remember the last time I rode a horse, I was 20 years old. I can't get up on a horse, or I could never continue that activity after I lost my leg when I was 20, because you're up on a horse, your legs are spread this way, right? And let's say this is the socket side, that'll pop off the wider you spread to ride on the top of the horse. So there's going to be a lot of I think, great possibilities that I'm going to be able to embrace again, as other amputees will, with this surgery. As I've been talking here for a while, a lot of you might not know who I am. So I'll share a little bit about my personal history and what brought me to this moment. You know, although my osseointegration surgery is technically starting next Friday with the surgery, I would say my osseointegration journey started in 1986. What is that? 30, is my math good? 38 years ago? My math might be off, but in 1986, when I lost my limb in a kind of freak traumatic accident boarding a train coming back from a summer session of Columbia College downtown. I will spare you the details of the freak accident, but I will, go into the details that I was injured. My leg was mangled as a result of the accident trying to board the train, and my foot getting caught in between the platform and the train. And the surgeons at Cook County Hospital dedicated throughout the night. I think I was in surgery for like 8 or 9 hours. They saw a young 20-year-old kid, pretty good health. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs. And they were doing everything they could to save my leg. And at a certain point, they were able to, I guess, put it back together despite how mangled it was. But at a certain point, it became a life-saving procedure that they couldn't control the bleeding. I went through like 120 units of blood. I'm told a lot of patients don't survive past 90. I was in really good hands with the surgeons at Cook County Hospital. It's one of the best trauma units in the country. I remember the chief surgeon's name was Dr. John Barrett. After my life was saved at Cook County Hospital, I was then transferred across the street to Rush Presbyterian, where my mother worked as a surgical nurse. So she, knew a lot of the medical team there. She was family. I'm not going to say hospitals don't give every patient optimal quality of care, but my mother was one of the hospital's own. And so the doctors certainly had a personal investment there also, because my mother was part of the staff and part of their family there to really take extra care of me, as I was very grateful for under Dr. David Roseman, because after the initial life-sustaining procedure at Cook County, there were revisions that had to be done on my limb, which included surgical work by Dr. Roseman and plastic surgery work by the late Dr. McNally, who took skin grafts off my left leg to close up the outer side of my right leg because there was a lot of exposed muscle. So this was me, about to be released from the hospital at age 20 with my fresh amputation. You can kind of see where the skin graft lines are on the left leg. I'm all bandaged up. I think it took so this is 3 months in the hospital recovering from the accident. And great nursing team there. Some of my family members, friends visited me. So yeah, that was me about to get out of the hospital, but I was not able to be fitted with an artificial limb quickly. I think I needed another month or two until they did the first test socket for me, the first test bucket socket that led to my first artificial limb, which, in hindsight, this was even before the brake drum knees I was talking about earlier. It was a pretty primitive type of hinge swing artificial knee that they implanted or that they connected to the socket. And it took another, I think, year or two until my first prosthetist, or my primary prosthetist, Ray McKinney, another great practitioner in the industry who sadly passed, I think 8 or 10 years ago. Great man, really managed to get me a good socket fit. And he was the one who gave me that first brake drum knee. And then eventually, when I moved out to California in 1996 and dealt with prosthetists out there at the Hanger Prosthetics Clinic, this was around the time that the microprocessor C-leg technology emerged as a result of research and innovations that were pioneered through the Veterans Administration Hospital, because as it should be, veterans are a priority with rehabilitation and new technologies to get them up and walking and get their lives back. But once a lot of these technologies are developed through the VA to help veterans and soldiers and those injured in battle, ultimately those technologies then get passed along and available and benefit the average, citizen and consumer. So when I was out in California, that's when C-leg technology kind of emerged. I want to say that was in the late 1990s. And I got my first C-leg, which was life-changing in that I finally had better stability underneath me and could walk more confidently. What do I do? Why am I on camera here? Why am I producing this program and possibly this documentary? Well, when I mentioned I had my accident at Columbia College, I was studying to be a filmmaker, director. This is me actually with my friend John, who shot that video of me putting on my socket earlier that you guys watched, shooting a student project at Columbia College. This was after my accident, after I'd gone back to school, and I had not yet been fitted with my first prosthetic limb. But that's crutch life. And I'm a creative. I'm a producer, director, writer. It's me working with the camera on that student film. Ultimately, I ended up making lemonade from lemons and used my a good chunk of my personal injury settlement from this awful accident to produce my first movie, because I didn't think anyone was going to give me money to make a film. So I wrote, produced, and directed a 48-minute movie, Christmas movie called Solstice, that with good fortune, a producer's representative here in Chicago named Shel Bugan was able to license to Lifetime Television, and that kind of helped me get my filmmaking career off the ground before I went out to Los Angeles in 1996. So I love doing all of this media stuff. As a creative, I've done documentaries, I've done music videos, I've done narrative stuff. And it occurred to me with this procedure coming up, being the first person in the city of Chicago to participate in this clinical trial, this clinical research study, this would be like a good opportunity to share what's going on with people that are not aware of what osseointegration is, especially amputees who might not be aware of it as I wasn't, to kind of open your eyes to the new possibilities and the new lease on life you might get if you embrace the existing transplant procedures or eventually the compress fit technology that I am participating in this study with. So, and also, guys, I needed a project. I haven't been working on anything for a while. I used to host a program on YouTube called Chicago Corner with my colleagues Edward Heller and Kira McCown. It was a kind of a News Digest show of stuff here in Chicago. The studio, my living room, is pretty much the one I used to broadcast Chicago Corner with. And we kind of took a break from Chicago Corner in late 2023 just because the news was becoming overwhelming to us. Just felt like anything we were talking about in politics, news, government, it's like, forgive my language, it was like pissing in the wind. No matter what we talked about, what we were, trying to dissect and figure out solutions for, just it became overwhelming. So we kind of took a break, and Chicago Corner might come back. But right now I've been focusing on some other things in my life, creative pursuits, some scripts I've pulled off the shelf, some projects that I'm working on. In fact, what a lot of you might not know, but you're about to find out, because this is going to be a sponsored program. I'm also, along with my father, AJ, the inventor of the SandPad LandPad EZ-Walk stabilizer. Well, what's that? It's a cane and crutch pad that allows people like myself and every other amputee who's watching this show to be able to get better stability when they're using the canes or crutches on sand, gravel, wet grass, mud, and any other kind of unstable terrains. So I kind of took the challenges I had with using my crutches to try to get across the beach to swim, and was able to kind of come up with a product to help myself as well as others dealing with the same challenges. So I'll quickly share what that's about with you, because I think it's probably of value to people who might be dealing with that challenge, along with those that we deal with our sockets and existing prosthetic technology. So here's a word from our sponsor.
Are you a cane or crutch user seeking greater support on the beach, golfing, gardening, or going up or down stairs? How about a tip that freestands both canes and crutches when not in use? Regular cane and crutch tips won't work on all surfaces. You've tried the rest, now get the best. Introducing the EZ-Walk by SandPad brands, the only cane and crutch pad providing stability on sand, grass, snow, mud, rocky terrain, as well as regular paved surfaces.
So there you go. I'm not just kind of pioneering as a participant in this clinical study. I'm a very passionate advocate, not just for innovating mobility solutions for amputees, but all disabled people. I've been a very, very strong advocate of issues related to insurance, Medicare, single payer, the fact everybody should have access to affordable health care, single payer health care. I'm on Medicare, thankfully. Well, maybe not thankfully. I wish I wasn't, but it's because of my disability I have Medicare, and it's pretty decent coverage. And when I have to face these issues that a lot of disabled people deal with, Medicare is there to help out with it. Medicare is there to cover the cost fairly. I have a copay, but it's manageable, unlike insurance plans. So I'm a big advocate for single payer for everybody. I'm a big advocate for affordable health care for everybody, especially disabled people who face challenges with the ability to work You can't work, you can't make money, you shouldn't be denied care. One of the very, very interesting things that came out of my researching osseointegration is that it's actually more cost effective. What does that mean? When you have to replace your socket every so many years, if you lose weight or if your body changes and the shape of your residual limb changes, it's very, very expensive. To constantly replace the hardware or the socket technology, new castings, those expenses accrue. So long term, it was very interesting for me to discover that once you go through the process of the expense of the osseointegrated implant, which insurance should cover, um, your costs long term go down because you don't have to recycle or you don't have to replace um, sockets and other connectors that go with what is now implanted into your body and is literally like a part of your skeleton. Plus, with your mobility enhanced, it means you're going to be able to do a lot more, be more functional, be more, as everybody says, useful, which I know everybody wants to be, should be. But let me tell you, when you are denying amputees the opportunity to get affordable solutions that are innovative, innovation is always very, very expensive. If you want someone to be useful, if you want someone to be productive, the cost of being able to be productive and useful shouldn't bankrupt you, and it should be manageable and affordable for you so that you can accomplish and achieve that level of usefulness and utility that you want in your life, whatever you do. So as I look at osseointegration and realize it's going to be cost effective, it's going to allow me to do more that I haven't been able to do. As I said earlier, I only wish this technology had been around 30 years ago, because I do think the limitations I've had to deal with not wanting to put on my leg because it's very difficult, because it can get painful, because you're dealing with pressure sores or all the other challenges that come with your energy levels. Even working out. I mean, I gained a lot of weight throughout the years because it's like you put your leg on to go to the gym. It's not comfortable. Let me put it that way. Even if you are wearing you've got your arms free. So that's my personal story and why I felt it was worthwhile doing a video journal here on YouTube and through my website, myoijourney.com. As I said, this is my first broadcast. How long have I been going now? I've been on about almost 42 minutes. I'll go a little bit longer here, just to kind of wrap this up. But as this was my birthday, and I said earlier in the broadcast, next year I will be 60 on this date, and I'm kind of like projecting ahead. What are things going to be like next year? Why not kind of document what's happening right now, share the story so other people who might be considering this possibility in their lives, amputees, can witness firsthand what I'm dealing with after the transplant Friday, through the clinical trials. I mean, I'm expecting more positives going to come out of this, but I'm going to report. There's going to be pain. There's going to be discomfort. I'm going to be on painkillers, I'm sure. There are going to be challenges with this, but I think those challenges are going to be very worthwhile in the end. And I'm hoping that as I share what I'm going through, it should embolden other people who might be on the fence, who are amputees, not to be fearful or not to be worried that it could be too hard. I think that taking the first steps, no pun intended, to embrace this kind of an innovation and see if doctors in your area offer it, since it is a relatively new procedure. I mean, clinical trial aside, with the compress fit that I'm getting, the OPRA and the OPL fit are available. But as I was talking with my doctor, researching and finding out about this process, it's not really widely implemented in the United States. You have to have it. You have to have some decent health. You have to be in fairly good health to be able to sustain it and be a candidate for it. But I also think most active lifestyle people who are amputees are going to be in good health. So if they, discover this and realize it's an opportunity, I can't emphasize enough how excited I am about this. So as I undergo the surgery Friday and come back and report to you, perhaps the following week, depending on what level of pain management they're able to offer me, I'll let you all know what it's like. amputees as well as general viewers who might be interested and intrigued by this process and how these innovations in medicine and health, ultimately need to be affordable, need to be available, and people need to be aware of them to be able to take advantage of them. On that note too, as far as what I mentioned earlier with healthcare being available, affordable, maybe as we go into future broadcasts, we'll talk about things that are related to medicine and insurance and healthcare that aren't specifically osseointegration issues, like, why aren't vision and dental covered in your insurance? You get an infection here and it causes something in your skull and can cause problems in your brain. Everything's connected. Our current healthcare system needs serious overhaul, reform. I don't care what anybody says. You may have to wait for healthcare in other countries, but it's because it's available to everybody. And I want anybody to tell me here in the United States, when have you not waited to see a specialist? So a lot of excuses to deny people things that would, I believe, enhance and improve their lives, as I think we should be advocating for everybody, not just disabled people. So one of the other videos I have to share here that is interesting, it's an animation. I want to warn you, not too much for the squeamish, because even though it's an animation, it gets into what the surgery looks like from a clinical perspective in the operating room. This is another doctor, I believe. We'll see the lower thirds. I believe it's a doctor from Johns Hopkins University, also one of the surgeons that is one at the forefront of this type of transplant here in the United States, this implant procedure. So let's put this on stage, and as we're kind of coming almost to the hour, we'll wrap stuff up after this. Right, Oreo? Okay, here's another video on osseointegration, literally what's happening in surgery, so you can kind of see that angle of it. And warning, it's only extreme if you are squeamish about seeing what surgeries look like, but it's not an actual surgery. It's an animation of what the surgery's like. So we'll take a look at that. This is what's going to be happening to me Friday with a different type of implant.
Dr. Rob Rosbrook from Hospital for Special Surgery, and we're going to go through an animation of osseointegration limb replacement in the femur. First is an approach to the distal femur depending on the particular case. In this example, we're going to excise some of the distal femur, so we need a generous approach for that and for the thigh lift. You reflect the muscle and expose the distal end of the femur, and then you perform the osteotomy of the femur, removing as much bone as is appropriate. Here it is several centimeters, sometimes less. Next step is taking routine bone cultures. Very helpful for knowing if there's any contamination. The next step is preparation of the canal. And that is done first with a reamer, serially increasing reamer sizes as is appropriate, followed by a series of rasps, also increasing sized until the optimal fit is obtained.
I believe this is the Oprah screw fit.
The implant is a porous coated titanium implant, as seen here.
Oh no, maybe not. This
is
might
then
be the
impacted
OPL.
into position with the optimal amount of force.
This is the OPL.
Once this is seated,
pause this for a moment. This is the OPL implant. There were not threads on it. The Oprah screw implant has threads, which is why it's called the screw implant. So this is the OPL implant. This is not the compress fit, but this is the second type of implant that is available in the U.S.
Targeted muscle reinnervation is done in many cases. The sciatic nerve is then connected to a motor branch of an adjacent muscle, and this helps with phantom nerve pain. The next step is purse stringing of the muscle to create an optimal muscle platform. This sets the stage for the creation of the stoma. The flap is optimally tensioned, the stoma is created. often done together with a plastic surgeon. In many cases, there is excessive skin, and so what was being shown here is the thigh lift to create the optimal soft tissue tension. And closure. Next is the abutment. This is the insertion of the dual cone. These are the parts that are sticking out. Care is taken with all of these tightening maneuvers to prevent torque on the implant. And so you see this is a tool that is designed to neutralize the torque. This is the dual cone bolt that is being inserted. This is called a taper base, which is impacted into position. Again, the tool to prevent torsion on the implant and bone as the tightenings are done. The bushing is then applied, and then the bushing bolt. The bushing is what sets the rotation, and the bushing is also the fail-safe mechanism. Finally, the adapter is applied. The adapter is what the prosthetic leg will be attached to. Thanks for listening. I hope that this has been helpful.
I will look like a Terminator. I will look more machine than man. So there you go. It's I think this is a pretty comprehensive overview of osseointegration, my OI journey. My OI journey. As things progress past the Friday surgical date, I will be back with more broadcasts. I'm really hoping I can get some traction with this channel. Please share this with other amputees. I would really love to be able to interact with the audience in the live chat here on YouTube. When I was doing Chicago Corner with my co-host Ed, one of the best parts of the program was being able to comment back and forth with viewers during our live streams. So I would please encourage any of you viewing this that find interest in it, share it with your amputee friends, family, relatives, share it with other people, disabled people. I mean, we might end up talking about more than just osseointegration here as things progress, because there's only so much you can say about what the recovery is going to be like. Although I also look forward to shooting some video in physical therapy to show the different phases and showcase my progress once the implant is there and I'm weight bearing, and kind of show people, you know, what to expect if they want to embrace this particular procedure also. So that's the show. Please, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you can get updates when I come on again. And I do expect I'm going to try to do my broadcasts live so I can interact with the audience, because I'm really hoping after I get the surgery next Friday, other amputees that might find this channel want to participate. You can ask me questions. I can talk with you about what you're going through. We can kind of share our experiences, figure out solutions, even just provide support, peer support. What do you want to call it? Peer support, emotional support for what we're dealing with as we're healing from undergoing major change of life that will hopefully improve quality of life in the long run. So I think I covered everything. Is there anything you want to say? Do you want to say goodnight? Or are you here? Say goodnight, boy. No? All right. Well, he's going to jump on the keyboard pretty shortly. The show mascot right now. So that's it. Happy weekend. I will catch you on the other end. I might do another show next week, maybe the night before I go in for surgery, just to kind of update everybody on where things are at. But I'll be back. Please like the program, subscribe to the channel, share it with your social media groups that are spread around for people with disabilities, people with health issues, especially amputees. And I look forward to updating you on my OI journey moving forward. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any comments, please post them below, and I will absolutely be responsive to anybody that has any questions or anything of their own to share. And thanks again for tuning in. Good night, everybody.